All right, ladies and gentlemen, they said they weren't going to come for your gas stoves. They are coming for your gas stoves, and in the process are making it even more difficult for builders to build affordable housing in the state of Washington. Let's get to it in our segment Unbelievable. Boop. Okay, so there's been this kind of ongoing fight, and maybe you aren't privy to it until now, but I'll catch you up to speed, where basically in Washington state and California, there was a similar ban. So this is all going to play into one another. But Washington had passed a heat pump mandate. And a federal court ended up overturning a similar ban in California. And so then the heat pump mandate in Washington state was sort of put on the back burner. But now, as a way to, I guess, finagle around that court ruling, they have passed and put through a watered down version of the heat pump mandate. Here's a story from the Seattle Times, and I'll explain to you what all this jargon means. WA adopts new rules to phase out fossil fuels in new construction. And according to the Seattle Times, this is the first line of their story, it will soon become nearly impossible to install fossil fueled appliances to heat new homes and businesses in Washington state. So what that means under these new building code amendments that were just adopted, builders would have to, according to the Times, match the energy efficiency of heat pumps in order to install gas in new commercial and residential buildings. The requirements could go into effect as soon as March 15th, unless there's any sort of legal challenges. It says, rather than outright requiring electric heat pumps, it would make it more cumbersome and expensive for builders to meet energy efficient targets without installing heat pumps. So basically their workaround is, okay, we don't know if we can outright ban the requirement that builders install electric heat pumps. But here's what we'll do. We'll wrap it up in so much government red tape and bureaucracy and make it so incredibly difficult to install anything but an electric heat pump that they'll basically be forced to have to install an electric heat pump. One of the issues here, though, and why you've seen the builders push back against this, we've reached out today for comment from the Building Industry Association of Washington, is that this adds thousands of dollars to the cost of building a new home. And this has been one of the primary complaints of builders in Washington state, is they have all of these government requirements being added to their slate, including this one, which Governor Jay Inslee said is, designed to save the environment. And then the state turns around and wants them to build more affordable housing. We need more affordable housing. Well, you can't build affordable housing if it's not affordable to build. So you're adding all these mandates to builders. It's increasing the cost of new home construction. They've also increased the waiting time to be able to get permits, which increases the cost of new home construction. So you're increasing the time it takes, you're increasing the cost to be able to build a house, and then you turn around and say, well, we need more affordable housing. None of it makes any sense. And I would argue that it is more unbelievable in the context, really, of what's been happening in Washington state, because this particular rule, and I'll just say, when we also talk about transparency and accountability from Governor Jay Inslee on issues related to the economy. So the Washington State Building Code has 15 members, and who are they appointed by? They're appointed by the governor. Okay. So the government wants this heat pump mandate. The governor wants a heat pump mandate. He wants to shift from fossil fuels to electric appliances in homes. Heat pump mandate, deeply unpopular, expensive, but he appoints the people to the commission, to the Building Code Council. So the governor stacks the Building Code Council with people who will fulfill his climate desires, and they push on these policies that make it more expensive and timely and costly to build homes. On top of all that, when the governor appoints people to the Building Code Council, he's done it in the past illegally. This was a story from May 2022. Inslee settles lawsuit over building council appointments. Inslee's appointments to an obscure regulatory panel have cost Washington state $70,000 in public records lawsuits and forced the governor to name new appointees. It says the dispute centered on Inslee's handling of appointments to the Washington State Building Code Council, which establishes minimum standards for new construction. State law says 2 of the council's 15 members must be nominated by trade associations representing residential and commercial builders. But last year, Inslee ignored the builder recommendations and instead named 2 of his own picks. Again, pattern of lies, of concealment, and of getting away with it. This was sort of an obscure story. It was only covered by the wire services. So here you have Governor Jay Inslee making illegal appointments to the Building Code Council, stacking it as if 13 appointments that were completely his own choosing weren't enough. The 2 that the trades are supposed to nominate, it's like, I'm going to take those 2. Thankfully, he got caught for it. And he wants to push through things like a heat pump mandate because, again, he has set these goals and Washington lawmakers have set these goals related to emissions. State lawmakers adopted a target of slashing energy consumption in new construction by 70% by 2031. And by 2050, buildings should not be producing greenhouse gas emissions. So the governor has, all these goals, but what did we learn a couple weeks ago from King 5 News? The governor doesn't meet these climate goals. Washington State isn't meeting these climate goals. And what happens when they don't meet these climate goals? They conceal the evidence. Is anybody not seeing the pattern here? Let's create goals for the climate that will make our constituents feel good, that they're doing something. When we don't meet those goals, let's hide it. Let's vilify the reporters who talk about it. Let's strip our government websites of the information. Let's conceal. When people find out about it, let's lie. It is a pattern everywhere they go. And at the same time, they have all this money coming in. They have all this money coming into their coffers. Could it be that that's really what's going on here? Could it be that they know that these goals they set aren't realistic? That the programs that they come up with aren't working to help Washington meet its climate goals? I mean, they've got to know it by now, right? They're not meeting their climate goals. And then they don't want people to find out they're not meeting their climate goals, so they hide the information. But if you really cared about the environment and you weren't meeting your climate goals, wouldn't you adjust your plan and your policies so you could meet your climate goals? Or could it be that they don't care that they're not meeting the climate goals? All they care about is the money that those climate goals bring in from you, hardworking taxpayers of Washington. I know what I think. And I think it's pretty unbelievable that they still get away with it.